Welcome back to the Driven Leadership Podcast, everybody. Today we're back talking about one that's really interesting to me. I think there's going to be a lot of nuance here. As always, with some of our favorite conversations, there's some semantics at play, so we'll kind of define it. But ultimately, today we're talking about feedback, how to give it. Maybe we'll get into how to receive it, but really laying out to a degree that we can agree on, like what is feedback at its root? How do you use it within a leadership role to maybe correct, to adjust, to drive change within people that are underneath you? And so that's what we're getting into today. I don't know. We can start with definitions, but where do you imagine us starting this conversation so we can really launch into this thing?
Yeah, it's I've been teaching feedback for years and years, and to me, it is one of the more advanced things that a leader does to really create a culture of feedback in an environment where feedback is eagerly wanted, accepted, hunted for, excited about, and so I think there's pieces that go into building a culture of feedback, and then there's actually how to do feedback and they're intertwined and how to go together. Yeah. But I do think we start with a definition. We were having, it's funny, we were having a summit class today, online class, and we were covering feedback in there. And one of the things that we put a little time and energy into was what it wasn't, which is right. Maybe this is a semantics part, but a lot of times people call feedback criticism. Constructive criticism. And it's amazing what that does in a culture, because I have yet to meet anyone when you say, hey, would you like some constructive criticism, that they're excited about it. I don't care how you frame it. Would you like some constructive criticism? No, I don't. No, but I know I'm going to get it anyway. So I say yes.
Yeah. Well, and it's oftentimes a rhetorical question. Like, you can say yes or no, but I'm going to say it anyway.
So when in cultures, people are going, hey, I've got constructive criticism for you. Criticism, the word itself, being critical, is really about finding fault. And so when we're looking at feedback as finding fault, we fail from the beginning. And so it creates a place where I don't want people finding fault. Now we're getting into, we're judging each other, and it's judgment, and there's all these things that come with it. Yeah. Feedback's about helping each other. Feedback's about really helping people see what they can't see, to grow outside of their scope and lens and move into a different place. Yeah. And when feedback is positioned as really helping, when we're looking at it as that person cares about me because they're giving me feedback, I get excited about feedback. And I want it, and I start eagerly hunting it, because I know that means that I'm in an environment that is really pushing me to be better. They care about me, and they're really paying attention. We're like listening to each other, and we're in this. So
yeah, and that's why I think that for me, I love semantics. I love dialing into what is the innate difference between this word and this word, because it's easy to throw them both around. Of like, oh, in our culture, we say constructive criticism, but it really is feedback. It's the same. That's just what we call it. But whenever you really look at the root of the words and the definitions of them, criticism is just the act of giving, of critiquing. Sorry, criticism is the act of looking for what is wrong within something. So it's like, hey, I wrote this report. Can you critique it? I'm only looking for what you view is wrong. In some cases, very valuable, because then I know how to fix it. In feedback conversations, when we're talking about interpersonal dynamics, that gets really messy, because then you become known as the person who's only giving what's wrong with things. And then later you come back and give your 2 cents on how to fix it. But feedback is innately, when you look at the definition of it, it is innately giving somebody feedback on what is wrong, but then also how to improve it and how to fix it. So from the jump, you're adjusting the conversation. And I think we're in the same boat, where I get excited about feedback as well, because that innately means that somebody is listening and involved enough that they're not just critiquing and finding what's wrong, but they're involved in it, that they want to be a part of the solution and help and collaborate to find something better. And that is why I think it's really important to define those two things and say criticism is just looking for what's wrong. You have critics out there who are just saying what's wrong about art pieces, movies, music, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But feedback is that really like those collaborators that's like, hey, tell me what I did wrong, and then let's talk about what you think I can do to fix it. And that's a huge difference.
You were just saying that, and I'm like, can you imagine if somebody was promoting their culture and they're like, man, we got a great culture of criticism.
Exactly.
It's like,
what are you talking about?
Wow. There was, I don't remember the book I was reading, but it was talking about the culture of Netflix. Mm-hmm. And they even got in some lawsuits, but it basically was that. It was a culture of criticism where they prided themselves on being so tough that they could take it and throw it around and be overly abrupt and downright rude and disrespectful with each other, but they're giving feedback all under, or giving criticism, but it's all under the guise of feedback.
Yeah.
And I guess they eventually wound up in some lawsuits and had to change some things and do all of that. But
that's wild.
It's crazy. But so we were talking about, so with this, and I want to take it to a spot that is, I actually want to start with, what do you do? People go, well, I give feedback, but people won't receive the feedback. And you mentioned that at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And that is true. There are people that feedback is just really tough. Yeah. I'd be willing to say live in the controllables, because the controllables are your influence on the culture and how you give it. Mm-hmm. And typically, if somebody's not open to feedback, you haven't built enough trust. You haven't got the communication in place. You haven't earned the right to give feedback. You're not credible. You're not respected, or you're downright bad at it. Yeah. And so all those sit, everybody wants to go, well, feedback, well, they're not willing to listen. It's always like you have that finger pointed out and it's like a gun. You got your pointer finger out and you're pointing at them, but it's the three other fingers that are pointing back at you. It's you, and yes, there are people that are more difficult and there are people that don't want it. And there are all these things. However, highly adept, skilled communicators, trust builders, culture builder type people, they build a culture that even those people are getting feedback and they're actually thriving within it. It still might not be their favorite thing, but they're able to work through it. Yeah. So that's why we're focused more on how do you give it.
So let's get into, well, first of all, I want to, because I think there's people who they struggle receiving it. Like you were saying, there's some team members out there, but how do you handle leaders, and they may be new or seasoned leaders, who are just uncomfortable with the conversation of feedback? They just don't, maybe they're avoidant in their conflict style. They view it as being overly critical. So they just want to focus on the positives for people. What's the best advice for those folks who are just struggle with the idea of it?
Let's start with the mindset of, do you think, this isn't for you, just a general question. Do you think that giving feedback is helpful? And so if we start with, I don't think it's helpful, because every time they've given feedback or seen people give feedback, it turns into a mess. Then you don't know how to do it. You don't know what's going on. And so because you don't know how, it's better to just avoid this and stay out of it. So for them, look at a class. We teach them, but literally you need to learn how to give feedback in a healthy environment and work on it and practice it and do it so you have it down. Yeah. The second part is typically people that are in that space, they really don't like conflict in general. So that they're you use the discs. A lot of times they're on the lower on the D scale. They might be higher altruist, higher aesthetic. They just want balance and harmony. They want things to flow. And so they don't do the feedback. Yeah. If you don't start with feedback is good and helpful, if you start with anything other than that story, you're never going to get to any further steps. So you start with, there is benefit in going through this pain of learning how to do this skill, because it will be painful for you, because it's not your natural makeup. Yeah. You're only going to get feedback when it's important and valuable. You're not going to just seek out giving it. That's probably not going to change. However, a way to circumvent that is high planning, like plan and use a feedback model. We teach one in a feedback model that they're out there. You can pull them up on the internet. Yeah. And so you go through and you plan it, you write it down. Here's what the feedback is. And I think most importantly is that you're focused on it not being personal, but being behavioral. So this isn't about something's wrong with you. This is about, hey, I noticed example I like to use is like running meetings. So if you're in a meeting and you see somebody, and let's say they're running this meeting, and I was just using this in the class we're doing, they're not, you notice the person up in front of the room, they're doing a great job, but they're not making eye contact with the group, and the group's kind of disconnecting because of it. Mm-hmm. And you witness this. Well, the behavior is eye contact. It's not them. It's not, you don't draw the conclusion, oh, you're unconfident, fix that. That becomes an attack on them personally.
Well, that's the criticism of it. Like, hey, you didn't connect with the group.
Right. So it's, but I see it happen all the time, all the time.
Yeah.
It is, we don't help them get better with feedback. What we're doing is we're like, hey, it's like Jerry Springer. Look at the people that are worse than me. Like, I can point out where your problems are.
Yeah.
And by pointing out your problems, I feel a little better about myself. That's what criticism is.
Yeah.
So not always, but a lot of times.
Yeah.
So the point being, going after behavior would be very clearly, hey, I noticed some things in your meeting, specifically around your eye contact, that if that shifted, what I noticed when the eye contact wasn't there, that people started drifting away. They started disconnecting. And there's so many other good things that you're doing. I think if you make that shift, it'll really have a major impact on your business or on your meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Even in the tone I'm saying it, the way I'm going about it, the way the connector words that are taking place in between, the reason all those are there is because I'm not saying it to do I gotcha, I'm better than you, you're terrible. None of that's going on. I'm just like, man, I think I got something that might help you.
Yeah.
I'm almost excited about it. That's the tone. But we use a feedback model, and I just want to touch on it so everybody has that, which starts with the situation. Okay, so describe the situation. So, Connor, you were in a meeting yesterday. It was around 1:00. It was. I think it was the second one I was in with you. Okay, so that's the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go to behavior. So, and what I noticed, you were in that meeting, and God, man, you could tell you were really prepared going in. I'm not just throwing compliments out. I am going, hey, I noticed this as well. You can put that in there. It's okay.
Yeah.
I think this one additional piece, I also noticed that you're not making eye contact in the meeting. Now we move to impact. And the impact of that is, man, people are disconnecting as it's going on, even though you're giving great stuff. So, okay, so we got to impact. Now it's conversational. So I'm like, so did you notice that? Like, what was happening? What did you notice while it was going on?
Yeah. You're getting more insight on it. Not just,
but I'm also not just dictating.
Yeah.
I'm in there and I'm going, okay, so, cause maybe they go, oh my gosh. Yeah. I always make eye contact. I didn't in that meeting because Bob got a giant L tattooed on his forehead and I just couldn't look at him without cracking up. That changes the whole thing. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, okay, there's a reason behind. So we got to ask questions. Does the feedback apply? Yeah. Instead of just condemning them without information. And then we're having a conversation about it. Got it. If they said that, I go, got it. Okay, that makes sense. I haven't noticed whether you're making the eye contact or not in other meetings. So I get it. Makes sense. But eye contact's super valuable. Move on.
Yeah.
Typically, you're not going to have a tattoo on their forehead. Typically, they're going to go, honestly, I hadn't even noticed. Or I've been dealing with it my whole life. I'll keep working on it. I don't know how to.
Yeah.
And then you're moving into, okay, or they might say, and meaning they're confused and they go, oh, wasn't making eye contact. Do you think it was because I was moving my feet? Like, what? Moving your feet? What are you talking? Like we invent things that are in there, or we misunderstand what they're saying. And then we have to really respond and get the intent clear. And then there's a suggestion part at the end, which is, what do they do different? So if they sat there and they said, man, I've been dealing with this my whole life. Well, I might go, because I used to deal with eye contact quite a bit. And I say, somebody taught me to start with, to kind of ease into it, just stare right between their eyes, right between their eyebrows. Yeah. And start practicing there and then slowly move to the eye, which I did. And by the way, that works amazingly well. And so I might help you. My suggestion is, though, make the effort on eye contact because you're going to get a result. Yeah. But it's a simple feedback model, and they're all over the internet. You'll find something similar to that all over there. But the model creates structure for those quiet people that you're talking about, the ones that really struggle or avoid contact or conflict or any of that stuff, is that have it well planned out, have a model, but get committed to it. If you see benefit in it, you got to be committed to it. And as you start practicing and working and coming from a place of helping others, it typically gets easier.
Yeah. Where have you seen this really not work for people, and where have you seen it really work for people? Like, how have you seen this really be a struggle for folks?
So just clarification, using the model not work?
Just giving feedback in general.
Man, there's so many places I see it not working. So to give feedback, like we have our online class is called, one of our online classes is called Fundamentals. And Fundamentals just kind of touches on some key fundamentals, six to seven really key topics that are related around leadership.
Yeah.
And we have feedback in there, and it's later in the classes. I think it's in our 5th session that we do it. The reason we do it there is because to give good feedback requires all these other skill sets to be in at least a above average place to be good at feedback. You need emotional intelligence. You need good listening skills. You need good communication skills. You need to be able to, simple stuff like the making eye contact or actually engaging with them. You need somebody on the other side of that feedback who cares, and you've done the work on building culture and trust to where you can, and you go, well, okay, well, what if all those things aren't present? How do I do it? Well, you still got to go through it. You just got to do it, but you're going to have more bumps in it.
Yeah.
So to give really great feedback and build a culture of feedback where people are actually looking for it, you got to be good at a large number of skills, and even more than I just gave. You've got to have this skill set. So when you go, where has it not worked? Man, it doesn't work all over the place. It works where people are coming in. And now you take also, by the way, the main one I'd say where it doesn't work is people's motives behind it. Behind the feedback. So if my motive, couple things. So let's say I'm a manager and I'm giving feedback to an employee, and my motive behind that is I want them to do something different. Okay. I need them to do this differently. You go there, but deeper underneath that, I am driven by, I need to feel important. And I don't feel very important because I feel disrespected because they're not doing what I told them to do. So now what happens is this feedback actually becomes a vengeance mission to go make myself feel respected through force. Well, that's not feedback again. That's not the motive of helping them. That is coming from the motive of I need help and I need to make myself feel better. So I'm going to hurt this person and call it feedback. Yeah. So getting into motives, that's a little deeper probably than the question was meant to go to. But
even if it's not, this subconscious need to kind of break them down, it could also and I've gotten in this trap as well of feeling like I need to give feedback because they're not doing what I said to do. I feel like I'm losing control as a manager or as a leader. But the feedback session unravels very quickly because then my insight and suggestion, if we're using that model, then becomes, well, just do it like I said to do it. There's no innate curiosity of why are you doing it that way? What's going on? Let's figure out how to kind of go back to the collaborative effort there. So it's also really making sure that you're not just giving feedback to maintain control. And that's where it gets into a state of, it can easily slip into manipulation where it's oh yeah, I give my team feedback all the time because they don't know what to do or how to do it. And it's well, there has to be some nuance between just holding control of your team and giving feedback where they are growing and not just being corralled into the right processes and procedures, I guess.
Yeah. There's about 6 or 7 key points around feedback that are like this. So the first one is timely. So when feedback is done poorly, it's not done in a timely fashion. And timely is a little nuance. So timely culture could determine, our emotions are high, so we need to cool off a little bit, and then we come back to it. There's all these different things that connect into timely. But as a general rule, feedback from the moment it happened to the time that we're actually giving feedback should be within 24 hours.
Yeah.
And some of you right now that just heard that, if you're not doing 24 hours and you went, oh, I want you to think about it. Okay. Something happens and you wait a week to give the feedback. Well, you know what you usually do? You don't give the feedback, especially if it's a little thing. Probably could help them quite a bit, but you didn't give it to them. And now it's been a week and it's like, okay, it's stupid to bring it back up. I feel weird. Social implications. Am I just harping on things? Like all these things go on. So you got about 24 hours where it's still relevant, where now there's always outside factors. They went on vacation or whatever goes on. I get it. But general rule within 24 hours.
You can't
when
just
we do that.
You can't let it dangle, because sometimes it doesn't
dangle.
Feedback doesn't come up until the next time the issue happens. And then it's like, I've been meaning to talk to you about this. It's like, well, why didn't you talk to me about it 2 weeks ago?
But that's what happens, right? Okay, we don't talk about it, and it's going to happen again because there's no way they can correct the behavior. So, because they probably aren't even aware of it, or they think it's okay.
Yeah.
So they don't correct the behavior. Now, the next time you have that situation, I always say it comes back with a backpack. Okay, so now we've got history. Now it's a repeated thing. You didn't say it last time, and if you don't say it again, now for sure it's anchored in. Yeah. And it's like you had all these problems. It's like you got 24 hours, get it done.
Just as a reminder, we are talking about business relationships. It definitely sounds like personal relationships. Same thing applies.
Yeah,
because that happens quite a bit.
Yeah,
because I think I'm just calling out where my mind went as soon as you were saying that. Like, oh shit, yeah, I did that a couple weeks ago. Where it's like, well, you didn't do this 3 days ago, and now you're doing it again. Oh well, I guess I should have said it 3 days ago when I first was aggravated by it.
This is completely off topic, but with Mary, I'll ask for feedback. Like I'm like, something's off. What'd I do? Whatever.
Yeah. What's
going on? And then she'll give me the feedback. And then I don't like her feedback. She's like, you asked for the feedback. And I'm like, yeah, but your feedback's stupid. I'm not like, that's not.
Okay, I do want to put a pin in that.
Interpersonal's a little different.
I want to put a pin in that once we get to, because I know there's a couple other things after timely, but like maybe we'll land the plane here in talking about how to navigate the conversations where the feedback is not accepted or received.
Okay.
Well,
yeah, cool.
But we'll keep going after timely. So within 24 hours.
So within 24 hours, we're having that. It's respectful. So it is, man, I don't know anybody that's not triggered from feeling disrespected.
Oh, yeah.
Right. It's kind of it's a pretty normal trigger for people. And so, I mean, road rage is all about disrespect. Somebody disrespected, they cut me off. They didn't turn the turn signal, all that. We feel disrespected. People follow people home over that.
Yeah. It's a landmine.
So I don't know why people think I can come in, especially as a manager in an influential space, and come in and disrespect the employee. Disrespect, by the way, you don't own all of that. How they perceive it, who their personality is. Are you taking care? Are you doing all the things, So being respectful in what we're saying, and I'd say right behind that is also being considerate. So considerate is looking at considering the environment, the culture, the people that you're talking to, being thoughtful about all these different pieces to the puzzle as we're giving the feedback. If you've got feedback for improvement for somebody, not criticism, feedback for improvement for someone, and you go right in front of their entire team that they work with, and you go, hey, Connor, I got feedback for improvement for you. You just disrespected them, and you weren't considerate of the environment you were in.
And they're going to just completely shut down anything you say. It's just going to bounce off.
Because you're attacking their ego in front of everybody, their self-worth, all these type of things. But people do it all the time.
Yeah.
It's crazy because it's about their ego, and they need to feel powerful. And so they're doing it in front of others to get that glory, if you want to call it that. But anyway, so we got considerate, and it's about helping people, not hindering them. So if you got nothing out of this whole thing, we should have led with that. That is the one to walk away with. If you do feedback, it's about helping people, not hindering them.
Yeah.
You do that. Forget everything else. Just do that. You'll eventually get there.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that really is true. If that underlying current is dried up, it's just you're fighting against so many other things, and it's just not going to be received.
Yeah. So this list I'm going through, we teach in our fundamentals class, but it's also the way you phrase the question. Where do you see people screwing this up? Yeah. And it's in each of these. Yeah. You know, so it's, and that last one, that's the one over and over again. It's about me, not about you. And it also connects in though. Feedback is about really gaining insight and information. It's about listening. It's about being super curious about how they're thinking, because the job of a manager, yes, the final output is we need that person to do something. But the real goal of that manager is not to get them to do something. The goal of the manager is past that. It is get them to think in a way that creates a response that is doing what is required, not just to do it. Employees that don't think are lemmings. They're the things that get replaced by robots quicker than anything else. We just need them to do something. Yeah. We need people to think. We need people to have to want to think, to be in a spot where they're going, hey, I can see, the principle. I don't know if you know the story of Kaizen and Toyota. Have you heard that one, Connor?
I think so.
So it's this cool concept, Kaizen, which translates into ongoing or consistent improvement. Is a simple definition. And Toyota actually paid their employees on any type of Kaizen, any type of improvement within the organization. They paid their employees a percentage of that improvement. And this dude was I don't know if it was on the line or wherever exactly it was, but it was a cog that was operating something. And the cog, let's say it had 10 slots in it. And his whole idea was if you made it with 12. Okay. Simple little thing. Yeah. And I don't remember the number, but it was hundreds of millions of dollars when they changed it across the board. Yeah. And that they paid him. They paid this guy. Yeah. Because he got a piece of all the savings that were in that business. Well, if you don't have a culture and a place where they're thinking and they're coming up with creative ideas and they're able to give that feedback, you just missed out on all of that. And that dude missed out on his retirement. It's a bad combination.
That's why I think that it's so important. I mean, in the model that we went through, you're focusing on behavior because behavior is the result of what's being thought about. And then it's also like the point I was making about control. If you're just controlling what people are doing and not influencing what they're thinking, then it's the whole thing is going to die without you. And that is just, I mean, for me, it's just the opposite point of all of this, right? Like if things die without you there because the people are just, they don't know what to do, or you're not there controlling what, like, that's just, we missed the point. We missed the boat. So yeah, I think that's huge. Okay, so we have the model, we have the kind of the check boxes of what to do in order to make it the most effective. So how do you handle those employees or those managers or the leaders who...
Or my wife.
Or your wife or yourself in that situation.
Yeah, myself.
Where you push back against the feedback that is being offered.
Yeah. Well, okay, so... It's interesting with this because some different situations would warrant a different response. So I'll go back to the toughest one, I think, is you take a married couple. I mean, Mary and I have been together like 20 years. So it's like we've had a few situations. Mary hates feedback, by the way. Hates it. Absolutely hates it.
I disagree. If Mary's listening, I think she handles feedback wonderfully.
Send that brown nosing emoji in Slack to you. So she and I like feedback. However, if I disagree with the feedback, or I feel like, wait, you didn't ask me why or where it was going, or we didn't have an actual dialogue about it, then I like to push back. Like I'm like, hey, where's this coming from? So those two are an interesting combination. So knowing our combination, what we do, simple answer is, when you've got somebody who's challenged with receiving feedback, we need to have a conversation about the next time we're going to be in a feedback situation. We talk about, and Connor, you've heard me on these, do this many times. We talk about how we want to talk about things. Mm-hmm. And that conversation starts to unlock. So if we're in a heated moment and I'm giving feedback or not, doesn't even have to be heated, but I'm giving you feedback or vice versa, you're giving me feedback and I don't receive that well, then okay, that happened. Mm. All right. We get through that situation. Things calm down. I come back to you and I go, okay, that didn't go the way we wanted it to. Yeah. And there's going to be other situations with feedback. How do we do this better? What did I do wrong? How do we engage in a different level? So next time maybe we can hit this better. Yeah. And you're more than likely going to have a better chance. As long as you make efforts towards that, you're going to get somewhere. So, and I go back to Mary, that's what we did. And by the way, that concept came out of a book called Crucial Conversations. It's a fantastic book. Gets into how to do this. Yeah. And it gives you a lot of tactical ways to do it. But what we aren't doing is we're not having conversations about how we're going to have conversations. What we're doing is we're getting into the conversations, they're not going well. Then we're not debriefing them well. And we just go, well, that person's a problem. And then we go do it again. And it's a problem again and again and again. Yeah. Different situations, but the same overarching how we communicate with each other. Yeah. So if we're struggling with it, we need to sit down and talk about how we're going to do it, non-emotionally, analytically, not without emotion, but I said non-emotionally, so I could get that. But we care is the emotion. It's coming from we want to be better instead of coming from I want to be right.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, we've thrown it out, or you've thrown it out a couple of times about creating a culture of feedback in your company, in your organization. I mean, we're blurring lines. So, in your family. And I think that's exactly doing what you were just saying is how you build that ship, right? Is like, if you are able to sit down after conversations, whether they go well or they go poorly, and evaluate them from a third party perspective and be like, hey, I appreciate you giving me that feedback. This is this is how I received it. Can we do this next time? Can we do literally give feedback to the feedback? That's how you build it. That's how you create it. And so then there becomes this expectation of we are still going to give each other feedback. It didn't go well the first time, but that doesn't mean we're giving up on it. And that doesn't mean, it can't mean that you just do the same thing the next time. You have to build upon each conversation. And then, you were mentioning this earlier in class, you get to the point where, like you and I, after we do the summit classes, feedback is just a natural process of it. We know how to speak into it. We know how to navigate it. We know how to get out of it. And then it's done. And of course, we're not dealing with high emotional things. We have, and we've still been able to navigate it, and we've still debriefed it. And it's become just innately the part of the culture. So then it's expected. You're not blindsided by it, but it takes time and intention to do that. Yeah. And it's not fun. It's not fun.
Not always. Not always. It's fun. Not always fun. Not all sunshine and rainbows. Yeah, but here's the options. Mm-hmm. We don't talk about it. We don't deal with it, and we either separate. We no longer work together, or whatever. Yep. Or married together in some cases, or worse, we stay together and we're miserable.
Yeah. Here's
right.
Show. Yeah.
So we got to deal with it. There's literally no other option. We got to deal with it. But so many people, they feel like it's kind of like, if I put my head in the sand and act like this didn't happen, maybe it'll go away. And the reality is it will come back. It may not look exactly the same. It'll come back in a different shape, but it's the same lesson that we did. And we're going through the same motions. Mm-hmm. Two people that really struggle to get along, there's a million different reasons that could be. But if you're not willing to sit down and engage and talk about it, you're most likely going to recreate it over and over again, just get frustrated. And eventually someone either gets attacked or leaves. It's one way or the other. 100%. So, or both.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Very cool. Well, before we leave, I'm curious, what's some of the, and I'll leave it to be either good or bad, and I'll say impactful. What's one of the most impactful pieces of feedback you've ever gotten?
Oh,
what comes to mind?
I've gotten a lot of, I've had a lot of people around me that care enough to give me really, really good feedback. And what I mean by that is I can be overbearing, too direct. I scare people that don't know me sometimes. Usually when I meet people, I'll either frustrate them or upset them because I'm just kind of like, yeah, why'd you do it that way? Like, I don't mean to come through. Just what I do. And I'll use training, but this happens all over the place. I've gotten this feedback at different times. And I'm constantly evolving, and it gets into how I interact and work with people. But it is a lot of times, and I'll get into my why I do it. But the feedback I've consistently gotten is sometimes I am just way too direct, okay, or insensitive, which can come through the same way.
Yeah. And
so, especially in my 20s, my God, it's like crazy. So it early on, I had a few mentors that would give me that feedback. And then as I got into training and really got into it, where if you're in a good training organization, you're getting so much feedback. It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
every process, every word out of your mouth. Like when we do bold and we got a new trainer in there, we're looking at every freaking word because every word creates something slightly different, which is it's ridiculous. But it is this consistent theme of be empathetic. Not everybody likes it direct, not always coming from that place. And granted, Connor, you've only known me in the last little bit of time, but I am have less hard corners than I used to. I genuinely care. I don't always show it well, but I genuinely do care. I am empathetic. It's not just my way and we're going to get results kind of a thing, but that's because I've been beaten over the head nonstop. So that's the feedback. It's real though. It is real.
That's awesome. Well, I think that it kind of proves the final point that I had in my head as we go this, like we've been talking about exclusively from the point of view of the manager or the leader getting feedback. But like if you're on the side of receiving feedback, and my own story, like when I asked you that question, what pops into my head was the story I shared a couple episodes ago about getting sat down and told I was being a jerk, right? In Chick-fil-A when we were in New York.
You were going to use a different word there.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Yes, I was about to ask you what was yours with feedback, but I was like, I don't know if we're wrapping this up, so I apologize for that.
No, that's the one. So you can go back and listen to that story. I forget what we were talking about in that episode, but so that comes to mind for me in the delineation there, and like kind of along the lines of what you're saying. When you receive feedback as a leader, there is a clear choice to make. Whether you receive it for what it is, you process it, you contextualize it, and you move forward with it, or if you choose to ignore it and dispel it. And just speaking for myself, justify it and justify your actions in it. For myself, I would never have become the leader I am now and developed into, and have the authority as a leader, because we talked about leadership as being influence and authority. I would have never been able to get to that point if I rejected and dismissed the feedback that was given to me. I've been given feedback that I have had to reject and dismiss, but after I process it, after you contextualize it. So I think, maybe we'll get into that in another later episode. But if you're, especially emerging leaders, you get feedback so much. Take it, analyze it, journal about it, process it, move on from it.
Yeah.
Don't just ignore it and dismiss things, because especially if it's coming from somebody you trust, it may hurt, it may sting, but ultimately it's for the better.
And I just say, because you said biggest impact and feedback. You just remind. Okay, here it is. Why are you so weak that you can't handle that?
Damn,
okay,
that was sad.
I had somebody say that to me in my 20s. Yeah, because I couldn't take the feedback, and it wasn't about the feedback. It was about, why is it upsetting me and throwing me sideways? And he was like, "Why are you so weak?" Great way to say it to me. Totally impacted me in the ego.
Yeah, right.
I was like, anyway. Hey, one last thing is we're wrapping this up.
Yeah.
One other thing is the opposite direction on feedback is, you know, you give them feedback up, and hopefully you're in a culture where that is readily accepted and well done and easy to do. However, that's rare that it is. And
if you mean you are giving feedback to your direct
right.
above you. Okay. Yeah.
So if you're a leader and you're going, man, I don't get a lot of feedback from my team, I just encourage you to ask for it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is to like go, hey, how could I do that better? And don't let them go. Don't let them give you the brown nosing bullshit of, oh my God, that was awesome. That was it. Don't do that. Don't do that. I want one thing out of you that I can do better.
Yeah.
How do I get better? And you ask for that consistently, they're going to start giving it. And then when they really have some feedback to give you, like something that they see, they'll start giving it to you. It works. It's
100%. Yeah. It's huge.
Yeah.
All right, man. I can't believe we haven't done an episode on feedback sooner because I love this topic. It's so there's such a nuance to it, but it's like I think we said it before we got on. Like this can change the game for leaders and their influence on the team and just how you develop even as a leader, like you were saying on that last point. So, and let us know. And I'm now talking to you, the listener.
Yeah.
Let us know what questions you have about feedback. If you want to get involved in one of our summit classes to go through this process, become more emotionally aware, improve your communication style, learn how to do feedback well, we've got classes, baby. Hit us up. Podcast at drivenleadership.com or info@drivenleadership.com. And thanks for returning with us. We'll be back next week with a new episode. And thanks, Eric, for chatting through this.
Yeah, likewise, Connor. Bye,
See you guys. Thanks as always for listening, everybody. If you want to learn more about some of the classes and the upcoming trainings that we have, you can visit our website, drivenleadership.com, or shoot us an email. I like to tell people who may not be familiar with Driven Leadership, if you have people and you have a business, we have a product or a solution to help you build those people up into the leaders they need to be for your business. Also, our Bold classes resume in August. We have one for every month for the rest of the year. So contact us. We still have seats available and they are filling up pretty quick. And we mentioned it last episode, but we also have a Forge class coming up, which we're really excited about. Forge is our sequel to Bold, built for teams. You come with your team and you run through a Bold style class with them. We would love to have you in one of those classes. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.